Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Channel Expert Hour, brought to you by the VAR Guy, MSP Mentor, and Talking Cloud. We're very glad that you've been able to join us for today's live and interactive conversation. Today we're joined by eFolder. We're going to hear some real-world examples about profit performance in selling file sync solutions to medical clients. And I hope everybody is really prepared to take some hands-on notes about this topic, because this is very practical and very timely. We'd love to see the hands-on examples of how we sell specific solutions to specific customers out there in the marketplace. Before we get started, I want to make sure we cover just a few housekeeping notes so that everybody can get the best experience during today's event. You'll notice in the environment where you've logged in, there's a widget bar that allows you to control a lot of the settings for how you experience. I want you to pay particular attention to that red button, the Q&A tab, because we will be taking question submissions all throughout the conversation today, and then we've reserved some time at the end of the hour so that we can address as many of those in the live conversation as we have time for. Please make sure you're submitting those all the way through. If you come across a note, something that's particularly important, jot that down and send us a question about it. Happy to actually have the experts live with us to answer these questions. A second note that I want to make is that we will obviously be doing this in real time, and so we invite you to join us and participate in the social media environment. There's a Twitter button down there that allows you to, if you click on that, you can actually tweet from within this environment, share your thoughts and some of the new lessons that you're learning with your community in social media. So please do join us out there in the social media world. A couple of times we get questions at the start of these that talks about how do I make the window bigger. You are in full control of that. There's a customizable window that's live with all of the information you'll be seeing. So you can click and drag, you can resize, optimize that for your monitor and environment, and you're going to get the best experience. So thank you all for joining us. As introductions go, my name is Ryan Morris, and I work with the Penton Technology team as a special advisor and market consultant. As we look around for best practices, we're always very happy to be joined by people who actually do this stuff real time out there with customers every day, and so we can learn those lessons and add best practices to our businesses. I'm glad you were able to join us, and a quick summary of what we'll be able to cover during today's call. First and foremost, a specific look at the dynamics of selling technology services, specifically inside that medical customer vertical. Now, you'll get a lot of great advice on selling scenarios in the medical environment, and we want you to take those very literally, but we also want you to kind of think about this in the context of how does that apply to other ways that you can sell the same technology solutions slightly differently to other customers in specific verticals. Obviously, Hipaa regulations are going to be a big part of this conversation, so we're going to talk about that in some detail, and we'll talk about how a file sync solution plays in the day-to-day operations of those medical environments. Not just concepts here, we're going to talk about real ways that you can actually reach out and connect with customers in the medical vertical and start your practice selling to those solutions. It's a high priority, it's a highly regulated marketplace, lots of opportunity for us to sell great solutions. At this point, let me actually introduce our experts who are going to be taking us through the call. Today we're going to be joined by Ted Hulsey, VP of Marketing for eFolder, as well as Dan Edwards, who is the President and CEO of Pact One Solutions. Ted, let me turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here. So let's see here. Should I be taking it? Let's go, Dan. Welcome, and if you would, tell us a little bit about Pact One Solutions.
Sure. Thanks, Ted. We started the company in 2003 in Las Vegas. We've expanded to cover multiple states in the Southwest. Our main focus is the medical vertical with other clients in legal and accounting specialties as well.
Okay, and I mean, just a couple questions kind of about how you started to get vertical. I mean, how long have you kind of had a vertical focus in your practice?
Vertical focus was right initially when we started the company. I initially had a whole bunch of dental clients, so that kind of got me started in the medical and dental side of things. So we pretty much we just started focusing on the on those clients, and we just ended up with other clients over the years that were outside of that, and would but yeah, it's been a focus since the very beginning.
That's great. I mean, when we talk to a lot of partners today, not everybody really has a vertical focus. And that's often surprising to us. But what are some of the advantages that you found of actually honing in on a couple verticals?
Well, you really become experts in the software that the practices use. You understand their needs. You understand, and including all the way down to our technicians. They all know exactly what those offices need when they walk in there, and what to do and what not to do.
How would you? I mean, just what advice would you give to an MSP if they say didn't have a vertical focus today? I mean, it's kind of a tricky transition, but what advice would you give?
Well, if you don't have a vertical focus, I would think that you find some segment of your marketplace that you're working with that you have more clients in that you realize is something you're an expert in, and then just kind of work your way towards those, especially if they're good, profitable clients.
Excellent, excellent. So that's good background on Pack One solutions and kind of the benefits of getting into the vertical markets. Ryan, could you navigate us through to some of the polling questions so we can get a feel from the audience on their degree of focus on the medical vertical?
Absolutely. To do that, we have some interactive polls here that we're going to get from the live participants. So as you guys see up on your screen right now, what percentage of your clients are currently in the medical vertical? We've got 4 different options there. We'll leave this up for just a couple of seconds so that we are able to capture responses from everybody who's joined us on the live call today. If you can actually just click in there, we'll keep it open for just a few more seconds as we're capturing all of the responses. 4 different levels, a little, a lot. How much of your business is currently coming from the medical vertical? All right. As we look at it, right now, this is actually a very interesting thing because the research that we do across this marketplace indicates that the medical vertical is collectively the most popular in the channel, and the folks that have joined us here today are a little bit less vertically focused on these guys. At least they have a portion of their revenue, but not many people who are dominantly focused on that opportunity. Ted, thoughts on that, and as you're looking for how we go from here?
Yeah, so I think the thing that kind of jumps out at me from the polling results is I think kind of back to the question of adding a vertical focus in your business, looking at the medical vertical in general, and how to go deeper in this vertical. I think before we kind of dive into HIPAA and how file sync and collaboration kind of plays in the medical vertical, I think it's useful to kind of step back and kind of explore a little bit why the medical vertical is a compelling opportunity. And Dan, as you're going through kind of your key case studies and that sort of thing, please comment on this. But I mean, my personal point of view on the medical vertical is just we in the United States, and almost everybody here on the call is probably focused on U.S. markets. We might have some friends from Canada on the line as well. But there is no stop in the growth of spending in the medical arena. In the United States. I mean, we spend, there's a lot of really good debate about whether we spend money wisely in medicine today as a society and whether we get our bang for our buck, but there's no question that medical spending continues to far outstrip inflation. So more and more of the average American's pocketbook and our governmental spend goes to health care. Technology is more and more being turned to as a way to control those costs, make medical practices and clinics and hospitals more efficient, provide better levels of service to patients, a better experience for patient care, and we're turning to technology to try to find solutions to many of these thorny problems in the medical arena. And I think that just really increases the complexity, for doctors, for clinics, for everybody who really touches the medical arena, including insurance carriers and everybody involved. So let's talk about one of the most important topics in the medical space, which is Hipaa. So Hipaa is, a law that's been on the books for a long time, but in 2013, what ended up happening is the federal government finally funded a lot of the oversight measures and compliance and audit measures that were required, and that really raised the bar on everybody who's playing in the medical vertical, because Hipaa had been on the books, but enforcement had been relatively lax. Now that's no longer the case. With the omnibus ruling in 2013, it really changed the game and made it so medical practitioners and their technology service providers really had to up their game. So Hipaa, one of the aspects of the Hipaa regulations is protecting EPHI, protected health information, and this can be virtually any kind of information about a patient or their medical care, when and if it's transmitted or stored. And so Hipaa requires that that information is encrypted and protected, not disclosed to anyone who's not authorized to see it, and that in the process of transmission that it's encrypted and secure, and it requires that anyone who touches EPHI has a business associate agreement in place. And so the bar has really been raised, and the risks to medical clients or other people who might be in the liability chain, if you will, have gone up a great deal. And so the fines for violations of Hipaa have started to bite. And what you see is that let's call it everyday disasters, in the technology space, like a lost laptop, a lost flash drive, a unsecured hard drive. All of these things can lead to relatively massive fines. And we can't let everyday disasters turn into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in penalties for any kind of client. So the stakes are high, and but I think you can't respond with fear to this reality. You have to respond with expertise and thorough processes, and really turning what is a very thorny regulatory reality into a business opportunity for you. And I think, again, this is another aspect of the medical vertical which makes it quite attractive. So if you are an MSP or service provider focused on the medical clients, when it comes to Hipaa, you need to become an expert, and you need to become an expert fast. You need to leverage outside expertise to do your own Hipaa risk analysis and audit of your own procedures. You need to really up your game in terms of the training of your workforce. You need to make sure that your business associate agreements, the BAA agreements, are in place with your vendors and your clients. And you need to really make sure that you're working with vendors in the space who take Hipaa seriously and are Hipaa compliant themselves. And so before I turn the floor over to Dan to talk about some practical examples of file sync and share in the medical arena, I just want to introduce and give some context. Dan is an eFolder partner. In his own practice, he utilizes Anchor for file sync and collaboration for his medical clients. And I think I'm just going to spend a couple minutes just explaining what Anchor is. Anchor is a software solution that is designed from the ground up for managed service providers and IT service providers. It is a product that delivers to the client and the users the ability to sync files and work content or even patient records between mobile devices, laptop computers, servers, and the cloud. It allows busy professionals or medical practitioners to be highly agile and effective in terms of managing patient content, whether it's X-ray images or patient records, and to do that across different kinds of devices but to do so securely and in a controlled manner. And so what Anchor does on a practical level is it provides a software layer that allows you to sync content between these different devices into the eFolder cloud. It allows users to securely send content from any kind of computing device, and to be very effective and agile with work content. And it's a service that's designed from the ground up for MSPs with features such as multi-tenancy. So on the diagram you see in front of you, the product is built with the MSP in mind. We assume as a given that you will have client A, client B, client C, 20 or 30 or 50 different clients using Anchor. And what's really important is with one portal, you and your technicians can go in and manage your entire client base from one interface. You can take policies and cascade them across multiple clients or groups at the click of a button. You're able to get high levels of visibility into everything that's happening with your clients and how they're controlling or syncing or managing their own data. So that's what Anchor does. It's available in either public cloud or private cloud deployment options. So if you go with the public cloud option, you're running the Anchor service, and all of the storage is going to the eFolder cloud. Alternatively, you can license it on a private cloud basis and run it behind a client's own firewall, or you can deploy it in your own colo and build your own service just using the software. So we support both different options. The product is built from a branding perspective, branding and deployment perspective specifically for MSP. So we allow you to put your branding on it, your name on it, make it your own. It integrates with common PSA platforms like ConnectWise and Autotask. eFolder is HIPAA compliant, and you can turn around and price and package the service how you wish. So with that just gives some context to how Pact One Solutions and Dan Edwards is just what they're specifically using. But Dan, let's turn the floor over to you and learn firsthand how you're using Anchor with medical clients.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Ted. For our first, we sell it. We pretty much provide it to almost all of our clients that are in the medical and dental space. So I'll give you a couple examples here. We have a dentist with multiple locations. They're trying to keep share files back and forth between those locations, and they were using a consumer-grade file sync that was not HIPAA compliant. When we spoke with them, we moved them to Anchor, so their lab, their multiple locations could share those large images back and forth and create the teeth, the implants, and other things they need from the lab for all their multiple locations. And so that's worked really well for them. They've really grown with that product, and they keep adding it to more and more locations as they grow. My second example is an oral surgery practice, and oral surgery and other specialties, they work with a lot of general dentists, and they have to share information. So there's two different ways they can do that. They can either email with encrypted email, or they can use a secure file sharing. And so what we did for them was we took, and the oral surgery practice bought all the licenses that they needed for their all their referring partners. So it's, let's say they have 20, I think they have about 20 offices that they work with regularly. So they actually bought the licenses for their practices so they could easily share X-rays and 3D images back and forth with their referring doctors. It's worked out very well for them, and they continue to grow that. Like I said, they have 20 now. I think they started out with 10, and they keep realizing it's so much easier for them than to try to do an encrypted email solution for that. My last example that I have is we have a dental consultant that travels all over the place, has offices that they work with all over the country, and they needed a great solution for syncing all their data. And so before it was very manual, sharing it back and forth with flash drives, and so we implemented the anchor solution so we knew it was secure in case they had any EPHI on there, and allowed them to easily see it on their phone, on their iPad, on their laptop, and their home computer or home office computer. So that solution's worked very well, and so we're actually expanding that to sell to more consultants out in the medical and dental field. So Ted, do you want me to grab this one? Is this for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's just, I mean, I think what would be great is just to learn, I mean, so we just, explored 3 different really good use cases in the medical field. Could you talk a little bit about how you, how do you bake, I mean, do you sell a file sync to these medical clients as a standalone offering, or do you bake it into your overall managed service? Could you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. We actually do both. We do both options. There's some offices that's all they need, so we sell them the secure file sync for just by itself. But a majority of our clients that are using it we're bundling as part of their managed services plan. So they don't technically know how much we're charging per license. We just say, okay, how many do you need? We'll just add it to your managed services plan. We sit down and talk to them. We make it a differentiator in between us and someone else who may come in the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then can you talk a little bit about your firm? I mean, you have 33 personnel. I mean, how do you sell and market and win new clients?
Well, for us, having been in the industry a long time, we use a lot of referrals. We get referrals from our own clients. We get referrals from software partners that we work with. And one of the best things is that they know that we understand HIPAA and we understand the solutions a medical or dental client would need. So they feel comfortable recommending us, knowing that we're not going to go in and create issues in the practice that could look bad on them for referring us. Mm-hmm.
And how did you go? What processes did you go about to become HIPAA compliant? Back in 2013, when the bar was really raised, were there extra things you did to keep and improve your level of compliancy with HIPAA?
We did. We contracted with a third party to do a risk analysis and get all our documentation in order. We really did a deep dive into how we do things. We spent time getting all of our staff trained on HIPAA, and we continue to do that annually because there's a requirement to keep up with that every year. So things change, people forget. You have to constantly remind them of what it is they need to do. So that way our clients will feel comfortable knowing what we've done. And we market that to our clients. We market what we've actually done to make sure that we are compliant and we can help them.
Great. And then if we're kind of talking to kind of MSPs who are trying to up their game and maybe make this one of their focus verticals, I mean, what pieces of advice would you give them in terms of getting their foot in the door with medical clients, or kind of dealing with some of the challenges of winning an account like this?
Yeah, well, one of the first things I would say is do a lot of research. Make sure you understand, just like with any industry, understand their softwares and how they work in their practices. And so even little things like not walking in a room when a patient's in there can be some of the silliest little things that really upset them. And the other side is making sure that you understand HIPAA and how it impacts yourself as your company, because you become responsible for things with the new version of the regulations if you caused a breach, along with making sure that your clients understand what they need to know to become HIPAA compliant with their technology.
What are some of the ways you actually market this expertise? I mean, I like that comment you made that you even with your existing clients, you market to them to remind them about the investments you're making? How do you go about doing that? I mean, can you give some practical examples about how you do that marketing?
We do it multiple ways. We do it through mailings out to them, most successful with email marketing. Our clients really love seeing our monthly newsletters, and we try to throw things in there every month that have to deal with their specific industry, but not overwhelm them with things that they read every day. And we also do it when we go and meet with clients. When we meet with them, we remind them of maybe new products that we found that will help them be better HIPAA compliant. And yeah, it's really, every time we do a quarterly business review, we're out there and we're talking to them about where they're at.
Okay, great. So those are some great pieces of advice. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of profit margins you make with Anchor on a monthly basis?
Yeah, I mean, we mark it up quite a bit. And when we bundle it in, obviously there's less resistance when it's bundled into the managed services plan, price-wise. But even still, when you sell it standalone, it's selling it on the feature set that you can't get from other consumer-grade products or even some of the other business-grade products. The HIPAA compliance, the encryption, showing them how easy it is to remove an end user from it and make sure the data is deleted and see who's been accessing it and when, are all really important things, and being able to audit what's happened with those images and if they've been shared.
Terrific, terrific. So I want to remind everybody, these are some great insights from Dan. I want to remind everyone there's a Q&A feature built in, so please start submitting your questions. We're going to be moving in the next couple of minutes to formal Q&A. So start queuing up your questions for Dan. And then let me just kind of finish with a couple, final observations and kind of some next steps, and then we'll go into formal Q&A. So just to kind of summarize, what does Anchor provide a managed service provider and your clients, whether you're serving the medical vertical or other verticals? It's business-grade file sync. So from the user's perspective, they've got a robust file sync experience that allows people to be agile wherever they compute, whether it's on a mobile device, a home office PC, or a laptop computer, or from a company's file server. And it allows users to securely and easily share content with appropriate parties. There are built-in backup features in Anchor, which we didn't really talk about, but it's a product that's built from the ground up for deployment by service providers and MSPs. So there's really rich security control and administrative features, integrations with software tools that you use every day like ConnectEyes or Autotask, and all of the data is secure, encrypted and secure, so we can, of course, comply with things like HIPAA. Just remember, it's an important part of being HIPAA compliant that you're working with vendors who are HIPAA compliant and can prove that to you and sign a BAA agreement. eFolder is a vendor that does sign BAA agreements. So just a couple comments on pricing. So eFolder as a company, we are 100% channel focused. We only go through service providers. And what that means is that there won't be really a MSRP out there in the market that you're competing against. But let's talk a little bit about some of the insights we've gathered on pricing and packaging. Most partners, when they come on board with eFolder, will buy anywhere from 100 to 500 seats. I think that the average right now, like when they get started, is 100 seats. And what we see is very successful partners will, over time, get to 200, 300, 400, 500 seats of Anchor deployed. And pricing can get as low as $7 to $5, depending on the volume you come in the door with. And we turn around and really recommend partners sell this as a fully managed service. And you can price it, the effective street price of a business-grade file sync solution is around $15 per user per month. But if you're adding a lot of value, if you're doing security consultation, if you're doing adds, moves, and changes, if you're providing a lot of ongoing security incident response management and all those sorts of things, you should charge this at a substantial premium, and that can mean $20 per user per month as an example. And then when you come on board with us, it's a month-to-month service relationship. So there's no long-term contracts. The ongoing software maintenance and telephone-based support is included in the price, so there's nothing extra on top. And then we really set you up to succeed. You get a named account manager. We have a really terrific onboarding program. We give you sales and marketing tools that help you go out and tell the story to your clients about why they should be using a modern business-grade file sync and share solution. And all of that comes standard when you come on board as an eFolder partner. So if you want to just kick the tires, let's go back one more there. If you want to just kick the tires on the product itself, you can download and install a 21-day free trial of Anchor. You just go to anchorworks.com/download, and you have a choice of either trialing the SaaS version of the product or the private cloud version of the product. So would encourage you to do that if you want to take a technical deep dive on the product before getting started. And then with that, I think, Ryan, let's turn our attention to the Q&A log and go to the phones, if you will.
Absolutely, happy to do it. And we're getting some good questions coming in already, so we're going to try to jump on some of those. But again, for those of you that are with us on the live call, please do feel free to submit your questions. We'll get to as many of them as we can right now while we have the experts in the real-world experience online. One of the questions that comes in talks to the details of HIPAA compliance, and Ted and Dan, maybe both of you can speak to this. There's a lot of layers, obviously. There's architectural questions about where the data lives and how it's transmitted. There are user-level requirements. When we get into that sales conversation, are there any particular details that we need to be aware of to convince a customer that we actually know what it means to be HIPAA compliant? Are there some layers that we really ought to focus on, or is it enough, in your experience, to say it's HIPAA compliant front to back, that's all you need to know? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the layers of compliance and what those details mean.
Well, I would say that just by itself saying you're HIPAA compliant is not going to be enough. It might be enough for some, but when you're trying to, it's definitely a way to market yourself, but you have to be able to explain to some how you're HIPAA compliant, what you've done, and try to relate it to what they do as well. If you're needing to safeguard their data, they're needing to safeguard their own data. So when you work with them, you're safeguarding how you access their data and who can access it, and same thing they need to do. So there is definitely a lot of pieces to it, but it's just making sure that they understand that you really know what you're talking about. And I definitely recommend some good HIPAA training for even the sales people that go in, because they will get so much out of it, different little things that they can use as they walk into a practice to talk about.
That's a great point, and that the training is the real question. Lots of details. So, Ted, thoughts from your side on being HIPAA compliant?
Yeah, I think another thing I would add to what Dan just shared is that you don't buy a product to become HIPAA compliant. It's a process, and both the service providers and the clients need to follow policies and procedures to ensure compliance. You can buy the most HIPAA compliant product in the world, but if the users misuse it or don't follow simple instructions or don't follow the best practices that are in place, then you can run afoul of being compliant very easily. So there's really there's different technology. There's a lot of different layers to the cake, if you will. One of them is the technology. Are you using the right levels of encryption? Are you using products that have the right feature sets to allow you to protect things like EPHI, the protected health information? But a lot of this is around the policies and procedures and practices that are actually used day to day. And despite HIPAA, I think what you'll often find is no matter what vertical we're talking about, there's always a struggle between convenience for the user and proper security and compliance, right? And that's no different, I think, in the medical vertical. We've heard horror stories about the lead physician of a practice group who just desperately wanted to get access to information on his iPad and is running afoul of all sorts of rules. And so I think Dan may have some stories in this area, I don't know, but what you'll often find is there are often people who are running things a little fast and loose and trying to take the most convenient and short route between 2 points that might be insecure and might be risking the privacy of information and the security of the operation. And you as an MSP just need to be vigilant if you're going to be, it's a business opportunity. You have to be well trained and have the right pitch to go in and turn that into a business opportunity, but people playing fast and loose with things is really why there's a huge opportunity for experts like the folks gathered on this phone to go in and put in place the proper technology and proper practices and procedures to maintain HIPAA compliance.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, one of the most important points that we've come across, and I think it's 3 different times during the conversation here, this isn't a product we sell to solve a problem for a customer. It is an overall solution that's heavily dependent on those ongoing services. The single largest source of not just security problems, but also regulatory compliance problems is going to be the user in almost every single case. That's an unfortunate fact of life. So selling training services, selling audit services and things like that looks like an additional opportunity. And Ted, to your point, that goes directly to the premium prices that we can justify for these kinds of solutions. A question for you, Dan, in terms of the way that you bring your sales organization in, because obviously they're the ones initiating this conversation. They have to have some credibility. Do you bring in salespeople with a legacy in this kind of vertical experience? And if not, how long does it usually take to get a salesperson to the point where they can have this kind of a HIPAA conversation and represent it accurately, be compelling? The actual people that are going in and one-on-one visiting with these medical customers, where do they come from and how do you get them up to speed?
That is a great question. We've had success both ways. We have some of our people that, they've been with us for a very long time. They understand the dental field. We even have one of our employees was a former dental office manager and a dental assistant in the past. Really understands the way that the practices work, but still, HIPAA's, even though it's been around for a while, it's still very new. So just having experience means you know how the practice runs, but it doesn't mean you know how to make them HIPAA compliant or help them become HIPAA compliant. So it can be done with both types of people. And how long it takes, we usually send our, like a new salesperson, we send them through Hipaa training twice, usually, because the first time their head is so overwhelmed that they feel like they're going to explode. And then we send them through it again, 3 months into when they've been working with us. So they've now been out there, they understand it. Now they'll get more depth out of that training. And the training is usually, it's been one of the biggest things because it really promotes them asking a lot of questions to other people in their organization and other people in the industry to figure out, what it is they need to know when they go in.
That is an excellent real-world best practice. Going through Hipaa training the first time will blow your mind, and the second time you might actually pick up the key points. So excellent in terms of how we're bringing it up. One of the questions that came in here is we look at the competitive set, and Ted, it speaks to your point about the easiest behavior that the end users are likely to get into. One of the most common competitors that we're going to run into in this space is the Dropbox option, and recent research that we've seen as a rogue application, that's by far the most popular product that's brought into not just medical environments but other business environments without the knowledge and or authorization of the IT department. Can you speak maybe a little bit to the idea of A, how does it compare? How does the Anchor solution compare to Dropbox? And then B, how do we go about kind of finding out if it's in the environment, and how do we kind of address that user level I just want it to be easy question?
Well, I can take part of that. I mean, the Anchor product is a very easy product to use, so that makes it nice for the end user once we get it on their system. But we usually run a scan of the network ahead of time, see if there's any Dropbox on the network. We usually prohibit them from downloading it through policies, but that's after talking to the practice owner to make sure that they understand what it is we're doing and why it is that this product is needed. Dropbox, of course, they won't sign a business associate agreement. Their product is not encrypted all the way through. There's ways to encrypt it, but still you can't get a business associate agreement out of them, which leaves a big hole in being HIPAA compliant. So to me, it's an easy conversation to have. I have no problem talking to them about Dropbox or any of the other solutions out there that aren't HIPAA compliant and explaining what kind of issues they could have with that solution.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question any better. I mean, that is the reality. What I might add is, in today's cloud-centric and mobile-centric computing environment, what I would encourage, though, everyone to think about is the wide range of tools you have at your disposal to really control, in addition, what kind of applications are being used in the workplace. It is, as Dan mentioned, it's a 1-2 punch. You've got to, Anchor is as easy to use as Dropbox. You can't go in and say, hey, we're not going to let you use XYZ application to users and not give them a valid business-grade and secure alternative. But you can here, and that's the good news, is that you can go in and say, look, these applications you were toying around with are not HIPAA compliant. They can risk the privacy of your patient data. And we need to put a stop to them, potentially, completely. And then here's a business-grade alternative, and we're going to put in our flavor of sync solution, which we can help you control and manage. And then look at all the tools at your disposal, from your RMM tools to the gateway firewalls that can do gateway scanning to network security tools like OpenDNS, which can help you filter, manage, and control what applications are flowing through the network you are managing on behalf of the clients. You have a lot of different tools at your disposal to really keep an eye on what's happening inside these networks and to selectively block the things that aren't HIPAA compliant, that can cause problems, that are obvious security risks. So the good news is we have the tools and we have the business logic, we have the law on our side, so to speak, and it really is a great opportunity to go in there and provide that expertise that most of these practitioners don't have.
That's great advice, and again, it speaks to the robust approach to building a solutions practice and not just reselling some software. I think that is a universal theme, but boy, in this example, it really does come to the surface, because it's not enough just to know this product, know the alternatives, know what other people are likely to be doing, and then build even beyond the boundaries of a particular product, ways that you can control the customer's environment, not just technologically solve their problem, but to actually add to the comfort and the trust and the confidence that we have with those customers. I think that's a really important point. Architectural question here, and actually kind of architecture from a customer point of view. It's possible we can do this in a public cloud. The product also allows us to do this in a private cloud. In your experience, Dan, is there a preference in the market where customers in this vertical are leaning more to public versus private or vice versa? Have you seen a real trend, or is it really just down to the individual situation and preference?
I think, well, I don't see a trend either way. Obviously, there's concerns out there with all the credit card breaches and everything about wanting to hold your data a little tighter now. But I see, this is in my opinion, and the way I explain it is, our partner has spent a lot of time and money making sure they have protected the data. That why would we want to put this in a system that we may not be able to completely protect, based on what they, how they implement a private cloud solution with it.
Excellent. And
Yeah.
additional layer of complexity and control there. Ted, to your point of view, do you see trends out there where more customers are leaning one way or another?
Yeah, I mean the main trend we see is that there were more private cloud deployments of Anchor in the early days of the product, and over time that has shifted substantially to public cloud, meaning the storage infrastructure and the syncing to the cloud environment goes to eFolder's cloud. And to Dan's point, that makes a lot of sense. We have massive scale. We've invested hugely in security and compliance as a company because it's essential to the markets we're playing in and serving our partners. And just on a purely economic basis, we've made it very attractive for partners to leverage the eFolder cloud. I mean, we bundle 100 gigabytes per user per month, per licensed user, and then that's pooled at the partner level, which allows you to balance out the light users with the heavy users, the small clients with the large clients. We're getting a little bit of feedback. If that kind of sounds like it's me. Okay, maybe it's gone away. Anyway, the amount of storage we bundle and the ability to leverage the eFolder cloud makes it a pretty easy choice for a lot of partners. But it's not just cost. It's cost, convenience, the fact that we're made big investments in security and compliance, which make that a natural choice. But partners can still make the decision if you have, say, a large, medium, or enterprise-type client that might have 500 or 1,000 users or more. You can potentially deploy Anchor. You can deploy Anchor behind their own firewall, or you can build the service offering yourself in your own dedicated environment.
And just to clarify there, from kind of an evolutionary point of view, if we start a client on, say it's behind their firewall, then they say, we're not as in control as we thought we were. What's the process for migrating a customer at that point? Is there a business procedure in place? Is that something that is a real nightmare to manage? Do we need to pre-educate customers, or is it migratable?
It's not very migratable if you're going from private to public. I mean, the good news is that file sync in general is the sort of, it's not a hugely disruptive deployment scenario. I mean, when you start syncing data and you've deployed the agents to the devices that are going to be in this, that are going to sync data, yes, I mean, if it's a file server, it's going to take some time to sync to the cloud, but it's not hugely disruptive. But there's not like a flip of a switch button to move from a private cloud deployment to a public cloud. It's a fairly large undertaking. So what I would encourage partners to think through is really try to figure out, what kind of practice you're running, what kind of relationship you want. Do you want to be running your own infrastructure? Make those decisions up front. That's probably and then, go with either private or public. There's nothing stopping you, however, let me just say that if you say we're, leveraging the eFolder cloud and doing the public cloud version of the product, there's nothing stopping you if you come across like a large client opportunity down the road from doing a standalone private cloud licensing deal just for that one client. So there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I mean, that's just a little bit of additional operational complexity for you as the service provider, but that's another thing you can do. But migrating between the two, not very, very recommended.
Okay, that's great advice. It's good for us to know kind of what decisions to be prepared to help the customer make up front versus the things that we can do as we go. It's also a very interesting kind of maturing example of how the conversation around the cloud has developed in the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, if you said cloud, everybody said security. I'm freaked out about that. It's very interesting, Dan, from your point of view, to hear how customers are responding to the fact that, hey, a big national service that is heavily developed and invested in this compliance, that's better than you could do locally as the end user. I find that to be a very interesting evolution as customers become kind of just structurally more confident in the concept of public cloud. So good to know what the alternatives are there. as we're looking at a couple of the other questions in terms of the way that you guys are building it, Ted, kind of from a program point of view, if I'm a partner and I think this is an interesting opportunity, getting up and running in this process, you mentioned the technical kind of demo, the availability of the product. Program-wise, are there training programs to help me design the service, training for salespeople, marketing and demand gen materials? How do I go about getting involved in this if I'm a partner in the channel?
Yeah, we take a lot of pride in proper onboarding of partners. So we are super proud about the kind of infrastructure we've put in place to help partners go from, hey, I want to do this, to I've now deployed my first client. So it's easy to get started. As I mentioned, you can sign a month-to-month service agreement. We allow you to get in the door as small as you want. You can get in for as little as 25 seats. And what you license on a wholesale basis, so you could deploy that to 25 one-user businesses, or you could deploy that to one 25-person client. Most partners come in the door with usually around a minimum of 100 seats, and then we take you through onboarding. And onboarding is all about training your sales and marketing staff on the one hand. How am I going to price and package it? How am I going to position it? Do I have the right sales and marketing materials? And then on the other hand, it's technical training. So you get your lead techs on. We'll do a one-on-one training with your technicians to make sure they fully understand the whole feature set, how to do the deployment, and then we keep you in that onboarding phase until you've deployed your first client. So we're really proud of our onboarding process. And then on the sales and marketing front, we've developed a whole set of marketing tools and selling tools that we call playbooks. And these playbooks are end-to-end campaign frameworks which allow you to, and they include things like canned emails, canned brochures that you can adapt with your own branding, PowerPoint presentations that you can put under your own skin. I mean, it's screenshots of all the products in an unbranded fashion. So it's a whole end-to-end marketing toolkit that allows you to build out your own library of selling and marketing tools on the product. So we have 2 different playbooks on the Anchor product line, which help partners to either have that Dropbox conversation on the one hand with a lot of your clients, or just to drive awareness in your client base. So the eFolder playbooks is another resource we make available. So those are some of the things that we're doing to really make partners successful, because when you succeed, we succeed. When you get this deployed to more clients, we benefit as well, naturally. And so our interests are completely aligned in helping drive that business adoption.
That's great. It's good to know that there is a deliberate methodology for getting started, because we don't want to deal with something as important, literally, as from a legal and regulatory point of view like this in a casual way. That's good to know that there's a defined methodology. Dan, from your point of view, one more question, just kind of continuing education, right? As Ted indicated, there was a generation when HIPAA meant one thing, and then in 2013 it changed. Where do you guys look for the ongoing education to stay experts in today's regulations and today's different interests in the medical vertical?
Well, as far as for HIPAA training, we look at both, when there's training classes available, where group type classes, both inside of medical and dental associations, they do that. We also use Format Approved for their training. Their training is very thorough. They have several different levels you can go through that have done really well for us, and it's self-paced. So, and it's very, like I said, it's very thorough. So it's definitely a brand new person in this industry. It really kind of blows their mind right off the bat.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one thing to get started. It's another thing to stay current and up on these things. But we're glad to know that there are some resources that are out there. Ted, just kind of one last question. As you look at it, in terms of the way that the technology fits into the larger practice, do you feel like we could market this most effectively as a standalone service, or would you recommend as, hey, this is baked in and it's just one more thing that we've done to ensure total 360 coverage? What's your recommendation for bringing it to market?
I think that has less to do with the file sync and share category and more to do with how you want to go to market as an MSP. I think, pick your product category, and it all just depends really about how you're trying to win new clients. What I commonly see is MSPs who want kind of to be the one throat to choke and have 100% of the share of wallet of a client. They'll take a thing like Anchor and make it like a standard feature and capability of an overall managed services practice. You see the same thing with like BDR services. On the other hand, there's other MSPs who really want to get their foot in the door in one aspect of the business as a way to energize growth so that you don't get in these long drawn-out sales cycles and you don't need to have like 100% of the IT spend of a client. And they'll sell things like sync and share, backup services, BDR services, one-offs. So it really just, it has less to do with the technical product category and more to do with your business strategy and how you're trying to drive growth.
Excellent. It's always good to know from a business strategy point of view that we have those options and the ability to choose what fits our go-to-market as opposed to we're forced into a box there. That's very good to know. So we've kind of reached the top of the hour, guys. Lots of good questions that are coming in, and obviously we're going to capture all of those. If we didn't have a chance to get to your questions on the call today, we will address those as we'll get back to you. But please, let's keep this conversation going. This is really practical information, and it's something that we find to be just so profitable and so effective in real-world applications. So thank you guys as experts for joining us today on the call. Thank you to everybody in the audience who's joined us as well. We do these calls on a reasonably frequent basis, and so we want to make sure that you guys are aware of where all the opportunities are for education and for this hands-on advice from experts. So you can actually go to the VAR Guide, look up where our next things are coming from, look for dates and times and additional information, and we would be happy to welcome you guys back in for additional ongoing education. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for today's call. We appreciate the time and the opportunity. Thanks, everybody.